Welcome back. The Trump administration faces a Thursday deadline to reunite thousands of migrant kids with their families. But there is a problem. The government may have already deported up to 463 parents, and the already complicated reunification process is now even more formidable for those families. The Justice Department says that many deported parents willingly chose to leave their kids behind to seek asylum. Yet it's unclear they fully understood what exactly they were agreeing to. The Trump administration says it has reunited or appropriately discharged close to half of the 2,551 migrant kids, ages 5 and older, who were forcibly taken from their parents. 58 of the 103 toddlers have also been reunited. So what is next for these families? Will these migrant kids now stranded in the U.S. ever see their parents again? I'm joined now by MSNBC correspondent Jacob Soboroff, who's been following this story from the start. So, Jacob, I'll ask that to you. Is the government confident that all of those kids who have been separated are going to get reunited, especially the kids whose parents are already gone?
Already gone. So, no. I mean, the question almost answers itself. The government has this entire category of, and let me back up. We're 2 days away from the reunification deadline of 2,551 kids that were forcibly separated by no other reason than Donald Trump and his administration decided to do it to deter parents from crossing the southern border. That strategy failed. The president didn't like the images coming out of South Texas, the places like I went into in McAllen, where you saw the kids in cages, and they decided to reverse this. In so doing, and not coming up with a plan for reunification in the first place, they've already admitted there are 917 parents out of the 2,551 kids that are ineligible for any form of reunification so far. And we already know that potentially up to 463 of those parents are already outside the country. And you can't be reunited in the U.S. just categorically if you're already outside the country.
So what are they going to do? I mean, do they have a process in place to find the people they've already deported? Have they left them with a phone number to call that has a Spanish person speaking Spanish or their language on the other side? Have they given them just some sort of identification or number that they will be able to use to find their kids?
You're asking all the right questions that not only we're asking, but the ACLU is asking as the plaintiff in this lawsuit that's basically forced the issue here. If you are deported and you've signed a waiver that the ACLU says some of these parents were forced into signing or didn't know that they were signing in order to leave the country and leave your kids behind here, the only recourse to get your children back, to basically say, oops, I made a mistake and I shouldn't have been deported, is to go to your consulate and try to undo the process. Sort of the frantic situation that's going on right now at the court in San Diego, and we should have a hearing and update later today, is that the ACLU wants to make sure that there's a 7-day buffer in between the time anybody now going forward is slated for deportation and the time that they're asked to leave the country, so that if you still do have a legitimate claim for asylum, and an attorney can get to you and protect you.
Sounds reasonable. Why does the DOJ not want that to happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. Also, the government says we're just too full. We have too many people here. We need the bed space. There are too many migrants in these facilities. But the reality is we know that that's not true. And the judge in this case actually said the other day at another recent court status hearing, that's not really an excuse. You guys, the government, were the ones that decided to separate these children. You've created, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you've created the crisis that's now on our hands. There was no natural disaster that forced an overcrowding scenario. Figure it out. Get the resources, get the beds, so that we don't get into another layer of a man-made crisis.
So the kids who can't get reunited, either because they're not eligible for reunification because their parents have committed crimes or something,
right,
serious crimes, or the kids who can't get reunited because they can't find their parents any longer, what happens to those children? So
those children will go through essentially the normal process that you would go through if you were an unaccompanied minor and you came into the United States and went into the custody of HHS. Number one, you might go with a family member that's already in the interior of the United States. And if you don't have a family member, you'll go with what's called a sponsor, a suitable sponsor that the government decides would be okay for you to go live with.
I want to go back to one thing. Are you saying that the government wasn't clear or maybe was shading some information from the parents by saying that if you leave, you'll be able to seek asylum, but not telling them that they're going to leave their kids?
Well, that was certainly the choice that certain attorneys are saying their clients were ultimately presented with. They were basically handed over an old piece of paper, which is no longer in use anymore, that wasn't clear. And these migrant parents were signing the waiver and ultimately being deported and separated from their children, thinking that that was the best scenario for themselves and their children at the time. The new form, which we've just gotten access to today, is a lot different, a lot more clear, and sort of lays out post Miss L is the name of the case, that you have many more rights as a class member, as a member of this suit, class action suit, to protect yourself and to be able to stay close together with your family. The bottom line is, let me just say, it is an enormous mess. It didn't have to be a mess, and it's a mess because of the way that this was implemented and then undone in such a clunky, wonky way, because it shouldn't have been there in the first place. That is the bottom line.
Jacob Soboroff, you're staying on this. You're watching a court hearing tonight, right?
You got it.
6 o'clock.
Thanks, Katie.
Jacob Soboroff, thank you very much.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.